Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. As we greet you on this, the 7th day of the month of Shawwal in the year 1442, I believe it's the month of May in 2021, and I'm greeting you from the city of Lahore in Pakistan, the famous city of Lahore. And I'm back in Lahore after some 20 years. I arrived in Lahore 2 days ago, and very tired after driving for some 4 to 5 hours from Rawalpindi. But yesterday I began my work in Lahore, and I began appropriately so. The first thing I did was to go to the grave of that outstanding scholar, Dr. Israr Ahmad, and pay my respects at his grave and make dua for Allah's kindness, Allah's forgiveness for him, and that Allah might bless him, inshallah, with Jannah. I also met with some distinguished scholars yesterday, Professor Dr. Naqvi, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Islamic Studies at the University of Punjab. I also met with Urwa Maqbool Jan, and we had a short session together, getting to know each other. I met several other people yesterday. This morning I went to meet with a Sufi Sheikh, and today I'm now recording my first video in Lahore. And our topic is Pakistan and the Great War. This is a follow-up to the last topic on Turkey and the Great War. In that talk, I had to recognize that Turkey is a member of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And the Quran very plainly and very clearly has prohibited Muslims from such a thing, membership in NATO. We don't have the time to go into the verses of the Quran, but we've done it several times in the past. And Allah continues to say that if you join them, in NATO, for example, that alliance of Jews and Christians, which is at the heart of modern Western civilization, and which has NATO as its military arm. I have to say these things because there are those who seem to be deficient in thinking. So I'm sorry, but I can't keep on repeating and explaining all the time for those who are deficient in thinking. And even though I explain with clarity, they still don't understand. If you join them, you no longer belong to us, you belong to them. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُمْ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. And so using the Quran as the measuring rod, using the Quran as the criterion with which to judge and to distinguish truth from falsehood, we have come to the conclusion that so long as Turkey remains a member of NATO, Turkey don't belong to us, it belongs to them. And we have found to our sadness that Turkey is showing no signs whatsoever of leaving NATO. Indeed, NATO has military bases in Turkey, and these military bases have nuclear weapons in them. And they're not there only for decoration. We are of the opinion, which we expressed in that video, and you are free to differ with us, but if you differ with us, you must tell you what is your view. We are of the view that when the Great War starts, when NATO, which is lusting for war with Russia and China, provokes that war, and we expect it, and we hope we are wrong. Let me repeat it. We hope that we are wrong. Even though we repeat it, they don't hear me. We hope that we are wrong. We are expecting that war to take place during the 4 years of Joe Biden as President of the US. And we expect that by the time the war takes place, Turkey will still be a member of NATO. There's no sign showing any possibility of leaving. And so we are of the view that Turkey would be obliged, according to the law of the treaty by which you join NATO, to join in the war against Russia. All of this is simple to understand. It doesn't mean that I am against Turkey or against this one or against that one or against the Ottoman Empire. Nonsense. This is an analysis. And we have said, and this is our view, and we are sharing our views with you. And it is only to Allah's kindness that now there is an increasing number of people around the world who respect my views. Thank Allah for that. Yes, I know we have critics and critics and critics, but the Arab expression is, the dogs keep on barking, but the caravan moves on. And we thank Allah that more and more people are showing respect for my views. And that is that Russia is now the most powerful military power in the world. And there is much in Surah An-Naml to explain that. And that if Turkey joins in the war against NATO, then nuclear missiles will fly from Turkey against Moscow. So will Russia sit with its arms like this, folded, with Turkey, NATO's missiles, nuclear missiles flying from Turkey to Moscow and to Russia? The response, I believe, from Russia would destroy Turkey. This is my opinion. The Turkish army, the Turkish armed forces will be decimated. I'm not saying this because I don't like this one or don't like that one. I'm telling you, this is my military analysis. And I concluded that it is perhaps because of Turkey's role in the Great War. That is why our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied that within 7 months or 7 years of the Great War, the conquest of Constantinople will take place. But there are those who are deficient in understanding, and they don't understand that the conquest of Constantinople prophesied by Nabi Muhammad ﷺ will take place after the Great War. No, it took place before the Great War. The world of Islam is fed up with these schoolboys, fed up with you and incapable of even understanding simple things. Our Prophet prophesied the conquest of Constantinople after the Great War, and the Great War has not taken place as yet. And that conquest of Constantinople will become possible because the Turkish armed forces will be decimated in the event that Turkey joins with NATO in war on Russia. If Turkey does not join in that war with Russia, it will imply that Turkey would have left NATO before the war. If that happens, we will be very pleased and happy that Turkey is now acting in a manner consistent with the truth. and are submitting to the Quran, but we've not seen any signs that the Turkish leadership is showing that respect for the Quran. And then we've continued to explain that in our view, and you're free to differ with us, the primary reason for the conquest of Constantinople is not military, is not the freeing of the Bosphorus and the Straits of Dardanelles. This was a view I had 10 years ago when I gave my first lecture on this subject at the International Islamic University in Malaysia. Subsequently, I realized, no, this is one of the reasons that the Bosphorus and the Straits of Dardanelles will now be free from NATO, and that the Russian Navy will be able to pass through and enter into the Mediterranean, and that's bad news for Israel. But now I came to the conclusion that no, that's not the most important reason. Because Allah gives insight and He chooses when to give it. And we sit and we wait and we think and we think and we ponder and we analyze. And then the insight comes when it comes. That the primary reason for the conquest of Constantinople, whether they like it or they don't, whether they agree with it or they don't, is irrelevant, because they would not have the power to prevent it. And that is that when we conquer Constantinople, we will return Hagia Sophia. When I arrived in Pakistan 6 weeks ago, I arrived to a country and a people who are all supporting the conversion of Hagia Sophia for the second time to a masjid. But in these 6 weeks that I have been here and explaining the subject from the Quran, I have not found even one Pakistani, not one, who has come before me to support it. Now they all agree, at least those who are meeting with me, they all agree that no, this was wrong, to convert Hagia Sophia to a masjid for the second time, shamefully, disgracefully, sinfully. So this is a good sign that Pakistan can be saved from this brainwashing. And when we return Hagia Sophia to the Orthodox Christian world, then, says the Quran, at that time you will see the fulfillment of the prophecy in the Quran, that you'll most certainly find those who will be closest in love and affection for you to be a people who proclaim their identity that we are Christians. So it's not you who will decide who are the Christians who will be closest in love and affection for us. Thank you, we don't need your opinion. Thank you, keep your opinion to yourself, because this is the Quran. The Quran is not telling us that you will identify those Christians for us. So show respect for the Quran. The Quran is saying that they will themselves proclaim, we are Christians. And that's how we know them. They will proclaim, we are Christians. And we are the ones who are closest in a love and affection for you. And I am seeing the sign that it is indeed the Orthodox Christian world, and the return of Hagia Sophia to them, 600 years after it was taken from them, shamefully, disgracefully, sinfully, it's now returned to them. And they will be crying. There'll be tears flowing in the whole Orthodox Christian world. They will be crying and crying and crying when we return Hagia Sophia to them, even when they have not as yet received it. And they're listening to these words of mine in Greece, in Thessaloniki, and as they listen to this video, they will be crying. They'll be crying. So tell those who celebrate the conversion of that Christian cathedral to a masjid, tell them They got just a little time left to continue with their nonsense. And then we'll get rid of them. And when that Christian world draws closer to us with love and affection, we ended by saying that the alliance, the friendship and alliance between the Ummah, the community which follows Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Ummah or the community which follows Nabi Isa alayhi salam, in the same deen of Islam, these two communities will come together in friendship and alliance. But when we come to Pakistan, we have a different story now. Because Pakistan is not a member of NATO. Well then, how does Pakistan prepare for the Great War? We don't know to what extent Pakistanis have studied the subject from the Quran. We don't know. And while there are so many who would listen to this video, and they already know the subject because of my book, which you see on the screen just now, the Quran, the Great War, and the West. You see it on the screen just now. This book was written perhaps 2-3 years ago. And we take the verses of the Quran which are directly connected with the Great War. The Pakistani Muslims would probably be aware, the Pakistani Christians already know, that a great war is coming prophesied by our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him. But he called it the Malhama. And they, the Christians and the Jews, they call it Armageddon. Pakistan would know that our Prophet has prophesied that this war would be unlike any other war there's ever been and any other war that there will ever be. It will be a one-time event in history, similar to when Gog and Magog are released and they spread out all over the world. That would be a one-time event in history. A people with irresistible power and who use power to corrupt and to oppress. And they are released into the world and they spread out all over the world and they take control of power in the world. Gog and Magog. This is the Quran. And eventually they bring a people back to the town from which those people had been expelled for 2,000 years previously. And Allah had placed a ban on them. They could never come back to reclaim that town as their own until Gog and Magog bring them back. And so, of course, we know it's Jerusalem, but they don't. We know it's Jerusalem, so let them keep on waiting. And therefore, that would be a one-time event in history. You got to be blind. For 300 years you have to be blind to not see it. Similar with the Great War. It's a one-time event in history. And our Prophet has said that 99 out of every 100 of the combatants in that war would be killed. There's never been such a war in history. And therefore, we conclude, logically therefrom, that the Great War would be a war in which weapons of mass destruction would be used, unlike any other war in human history. So there are no experts. None. And we from eschatology, we have knowledge today. The political scientists and the military scientists, they don't have that information, we have it. And so in our next video, we take a look at the Great War, in which nuclear weapons and thermonuclear weapons and weapons we don't know about as yet would be used. and millions will die. And what would be the implication in that war for Pakistan? So stay tuned for our next session, inshallah. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.